Why is Tom Wills an Australian legend? Same reason as Burke and Wills, same reason as the boys at Gallipoli, same reason as Ned Kelly. Because he represents an aspect of Australian experience at its most vivid and intense. And the power of his story is not diminished after 130 years.
Tom Wills was the most important person by far in the origins of Australian rules football.
When Tom Wills had come back to what is described as a bustling metropolis, he would have been, I'm sure, surprised coming back as a 21-year-old to a town that he'd left as a young teenager, and seeing the growth that had occurred in Melbourne town.
Cricket in this period is an extremely rough and crude and quite boozy and quite primitive game, played on underprepared wickets on turf that hadn't yet been made congenial to long-term games. The game was played with unsprung bats, with very hard balls, with no protective equipment, and in a general atmosphere of bonhomie.
Cricket and alcohol were inextricably linked during the career of Tom Wills. Cricketers sometimes drank before matches, during matches, and after matches.
In some ways, you've got to look at him as a pure Australian larrikin. He was definitely obsessed with sport. But he was a complex and difficult character. I think you'd call him single-minded. He just wanted to get on and play cricket, and then wanted to play football as well.
He brought to the colony of Victoria the finest sporting cricketing pedigree, particularly as it pertained to amateur gentlemen cricketers.
He was the person who sort of brought colonial pride to Victoria. We were an offshoot of the New South Wales colony. The thing that everybody aspired to was to be able to beat New South Wales at cricket. And it wasn't until Tom Wills came along that became a reality. And he was an absolute cult hero.
So Tom Wills has come back. He is a champion sportsman. And then he steps back into this political theatre, which is the separation of Victoria and New South Wales. And Victoria is then in its infancy. It's eight years old when the first game is played. It is not one of the old penal colonies. It is a new vision of what Australia can be. Into this political stroke sporting theatre walks Tom Wills. And what's he do? He delivers Victoria its first ever victory over New South Wales in cricket. And it's a cause of huge public celebration.
To us, for finally beating those New South Wales.
There was extraordinary intercolonial rivalry. See, it's interesting when you look at the archives that on the surface there's a great deal of courtesy or apparent politeness, but it was really through sporting rivalry that colonies could boast tremendously of their superiority over the other colonies. So when they had intercolonial cricket matches, these were the sporting events of the year, and Parliament would stop, whether it be in Melbourne or Sydney, and parliamentarians would walk down to the ground. Tom Wills, as captain of the Victorian team, would have been pretty much the most well-known person in the entire colony after his victory.
He also greatly glamorises Australian cricket, and as a result he attracts an awful lot of people towards the game through the vehicle of the Melbourne Cricket Club and turns it into a much better and more expansive and more exciting form of the game that attracts more and more fans.